Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. So on this episode of the Soapbox, we're going to do things a little bit differently. The last three episodes I've done have been reviewing Daokusei, the manga series, and so now I want to change things up and talk about an anime that I have been watching for the last couple years and I really enjoy, and I love the manga even more, and that is My Hero Academia. So the fifth season is coming out this coming weekend, and I definitely want to react to it since I've started this channel up. But I thought, okay, if I'm going to react to season 5, I might want to recap my thoughts on seasons 1 through 4. So this is not going to be like the previous Soapbox episodes where I've been going plot point by plot point, because that would be like an 8-hour long video. So instead, thanks to Woo on Patreon and to a little bit of research on my part here, I just have main plot points that I want to talk about, main overarching themes, and things about My Hero Academia that I want to talk about before we jump into season 5. And at the end of this video, there will be a small spoiler corner, because like I said, I've read the manga and have been keeping up with the manga to My Hero Academia, which is a bit further than the anime at this point. But how I'm going to be doing the reactions to My Hero Academia is going to be very similar to my Haikyuu reactions. We'll watch the episode, obviously, I'll react to it, and then I will go back through the manga and read what the manga has covered over the episode and kind of do like a little spoiler corner at the end. But let's talk about My Hero Academia by Horikoshi, because I love this series. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up, my father is a huge comic book fan. He loved Batman. He was mainly a DC comic book person. He was all about Batman when he grew up, and he loved DC comics like the Justice League, which I think that Horikoshi draws a lot of influence from Western comic book and superhero tropes, which I really appreciate. He gives it a very Japanese spin, which is awesome, but he also draws from some of my favorite films and sci-fi stuff, which is Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I love The Mandalorian. I love Star Wars. I grew up watching the films. I was alive when the prequels all came out. So, needless to say, I'm a big Star Wars fan, and Horikoshi draws a lot of references to Star Wars. But y'all knew that, right? So, growing up reading comic books, I read a lot of Batman, Justice League growing up, and then as I got into high school, I transitioned more into like Spider-Man. I love Peter Parker's character, and then into X-Men, which again is also ties into My Hero Academia a lot. So if you have no clue what My Hero Academia is about, the simple plot summary is that in this world, 80% of people have these things called quirks, and they're kind of like superpowers, kind of like, you know, supernatural powers, and a small portion of the population do not. And our main character, Izuku Midoriya, does not have a quirk. And by random circumstance, he ends up meeting the number one hero, because in this society, the heroes are all ranked by numbers, and the number one hero, All Might, ends up, we find out that his power is transferable, and he gives his powers to Izuku. And Izuku, it's his story about becoming the greatest hero, as quote unquote. And then his friends, and there's the villain society, and everything's all tied up together. So there's a lot of superhero tropes that are involved in this series, but Horikoshi makes it very original. And I actually like the protagonist of Izuku a lot. I know he gets a lot of grief from some people because they think he's maybe like a weaker character, but no, I like Izuku as a protagonist, because kind of similar to Tanjiro and similar to Yuji in Jujutsu Kaisen and Tanjiro and Demon Slayer, I like this modern trend of Japanese shonen protagonists having a genuine heart and compassion and being able to be emotional and it not be a sign of weakness. So like Yuji, Izuku, Tanjiro, they're all three modern shonen protagonists who can be emotional and cry, and it's okay. That whole mentality of men don't cry and things like that you might see in like a late 90s, early 2000s shonen is kind of thrown out the window with these protagonists. They're still strong, they're still badass, they can still get the job done, but they're allowed to be emotional and have moments where they do break down and show genuine feeling, and it's not shown as a sign of weakness. It's shown as just part of their character. And I really appreciate that Horikoshi lets Midoriya do that. That's really cool. So yeah, I wanted to break this up into a few questions that I not only got from Patreon, but that I also thought were interesting to bring up just to summarize seasons 1 through 4, because I got into this series at the start of season 3, and I realized my computer's going to probably glitch throughout this whole reaction review, but what can we do? My brother has watched this series since season 1 came out, and he's been reading the manga as well alongside me. And I remember right when season 3 was about to come out, my brother was like, hey, you need to watch this show with me. It's called My Hero Academia. And this was around the time I got a little bit burnt out with anime and manga, and I was in the middle of finishing up college and stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't have time. And he's like, no. He's like, season 3 is about to come out. He's like, I want you to watch it with me. You're really going to like this show. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, just watch. He's like, I'll rewatch seasons 1 and 2 with you. And I was like, nah. And then he finally convinced me. He's like, watch the first episode with me, and if you don't like it, I'll leave you alone. And I said, okay. And we watched the first episode, and I said, well, maybe we can't just stop there. We need to watch episode 2. And it ended up being we binge watched half of the first season that night. So we watched like the first season in 2 days, he and I did. And then after that, I was hooked. I was like, okay, because it checks off a lot of boxes for me. I love comic book stories and superhero stories in comics, and so it was checking off like superheroes, villain society, class issues, like a lot of modern issues put into this comic book world, and I just really like it. And the characters are all very different, unique, and enjoyable. The villains are all very unique and have a lot of characterization, and they're easily attachable villains that you can relate to, and they're not totally, with the exception of a few, completely evil. There's characters like Twice that are kind of more gray in terms of their morality, and that allows the story to have a lot more depth, and it allows a lot more theorizing within the fandom, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, I started seasons 3 when it came out, and I've watched season 3 and season 4 as it's come out, and I really enjoy it. And then right around the time, about halfway through season 4, I was like, well, I wanted to start reading the manga. So I'm a late manga reader. I just started reading the manga around season 4, but I'm caught up now, and I'm concurrently reading it week to week, and oh my gosh. We'll have a spoiler corner here at the end, but all I'll say is that those of you that are anime onlys with this show, the best is yet to come, my friends. It's kind of like Haikyuu. My favorite stuff in Haikyuu has not been animated yet, and my favorite stuff in My Hero Academia has not been animated yet either. So we're going to talk about that at the end of this. But the first thing I want to talk about is ranking the seasons, which is hard. I'm not going to go plot point by plot point with the seasons, but I want to rank from my least favorite to my favorite seasons so far. My least favorite season would probably be season 1, and very simply because it's the introduction season. Like most shows, I feel like with anime, either the first season is the best season or it's the least best season, if that makes sense. Usually an anime either peaks in that first season and then kind of pitters out, or it sets up in the first season and then it explodes beyond that. And that's definitely the latter that is the case with My Hero Academia. Because the first season, the stakes are pretty low. The biggest thing that happens is that UA is broke into by Shigaraki and the villains. We meet our characters. The setup is there. We get Izuku getting All Might's powers. He starts training. It's kind of like what you expect out of a first season of a shonen. And then I would have to say my second least favorite season, and it's very closely, it's almost tied, and it's hard to rank these two seasons because they're so different. But if I had to place one season in second to last, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this in the comments, but hear me out, it would be season 2. And here's why. I have watched a bit of shonen. Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach, One Piece, Naruto, and tournament arcs are cool, but they are a tiresome trope in the shonen world. One thing I love about Jujutsu Kaisen right now, in contrast, is that what I thought was going to be a big tournament arc in Jujutsu Kaisen has become something completely different, and I love it for it. I was like, oh, thank you, show. Don't get me wrong. I think the tournament arc is really cool. When I first watched the tournament arc in season 2, it was awesome because it sets up all of these characters. It sets up their backstories, their dynamics, the whole thing about Shoto Todoroki and the origin of his scar and his feelings towards his father and his family, and the ending where he goes and sees his mother in the hospital. It's so powerful and wonderful, but the rewatchability of it, I find myself fast forwarding through a lot of it. I'm like, okay, let's get to this one part. Okay, let's fast forward to this. Let's get to this part. So, and to be honest, I love Stain and what his character represents. I think that there's still a lot more that we're going to get with Stain by the end of this series that we haven't got to yet, and I think he's an important character. His message in terms of the whole society of My Hero Academia is extremely valid and important. And in the grand scheme of the show, I find that his battle with Ida and Shoto and Deku isn't as compelling as some of the other battles, perhaps, in hindsight, in overall views. Like, in the moment when you first watch season 2, it's amazing. And I still love what his character represents. But I think that overall season 2, it builds off of season 1, but I don't think it builds as much as seasons 3 and season 4 does, because the show just keeps getting more deep and building more of these characters and giving us more and more details. So my second favorite season so far is season 4. And a lot of people don't like season 4 because it seems very disjointed. I think especially a lot of anime only people are like, they think season 4 is a weaker season. But when I get to the spoiler corner, I'll talk more about that. But season 4 is a transitional season. It is transitioning My Hero Academia from the innocence of starting high school and the innocence of childhood into the realities of the adult world. So the one thing I really like about season 4 is that it starts us getting darker, the show getting darker, and it's going to get darker. But it's introducing Overhaul. I like Overhaul as a villain. I like the mature themes that the introduction of Overhaul suggests. So it's talking about in saving Eri, it's not just rescuing a civilian from a falling building or from a burglary. It's about saving a girl who has been deeply traumatized and deeply hurt and psychologically and physically abused. And it's dealing with these much darker tropes of the superhero world and the society the show is built upon than the last couple of seasons have given us so far. It's introducing it in any show that has the Yakuza in it or the Mafia. I'm a big fan of. So the idea of Quark using Yakuza, I'm all about it. So of course I liked that about this season. But one thing that this really does is it's introducing these kids into the realities, the harsh realities of the society that they're training to become heroes for. Because in season 1 and season 2, UA, it's like, oh, we're going to become heroes and we're going to save the day and we're going to rescue people. And seasons 3 and seasons 4 start to transition us into that, yeah, you are, but also there's some things going on in the world that's a lot darker than what you think. Like, it's not just rescuing people falling from a building, it's dealing with issues like with Eri and with Overhaul and with All for One, which we'll talk about here shortly. And the idea that society, not everybody likes heroes. Not everybody thinks heroes are doing enough. There's people that complain, and heroes have to keep an appearance, and it's like a big celebrity publicity thing, and there's all of that with it. And Stain's whole argument about the commercialization of heroes is all talked about. But I like season 4 because it's introducing us to, here's the reality beyond UA. Heroes can die. Like Night Eye dies in season 4, and it's like, this is the reality. Some of y'all may die in this profession, so it's not, you're not just going to get healed no matter what. There are consequences, and I really like that season 4 is introducing these heavier elements to the story. I really like that quite a bit, and we'll talk more about it in the spoiler corner of why I like season 4 a little bit more than season 2. But my favorite season is season 3. I mean, season 3 is just, there's, like season 4, there are arcs throughout it. So season 3, you have the camp, and I really love the camp. I love the idea that the kids all go to a camp outside of UA, and it introduces us to Dabi and the other villains and the League of Villains and how dangerous they are. I love that. Shigaraki kidnapping Bakugo. I can go back and watch Compass and Dabi's scene where they kidnap Bakugo. That episode, I can rewatch it all the time because it's just, the stakes are so high, and it's the first time where Izuku can't, he just battled Muscular, he just did all that, and he can't save Bakugo, his best friend. his unofficial best friend. Bakugo doesn't think they're best friends at that point, but they are. So it's so good. And then the battle between All Might and All for One, it's so good. Like, it's just like, if the anime had ended with season 3, I don't think people could complain, but I'm glad it goes on and it gets better. So it's just awesome. It's like, I feel like season 3 is the end of Act 1. Season 3 is the end of Act 1 of My Hero Academia. Like, we've battled All for One. We came out victorious. We transitioned into the dorms. The dorm scene, I love the slice of life aspects of anime, and the dorm episode is like one of the best ones, where they just go from room to room, and we get to see characters' rooms and how it portrays their personalities, and that's all fun and exciting. And then you have Bakugo versus Deku at the end of the season. And it's like, it seems like the whole Act 1 ends with season 3, and everything's been leading up to this point. We've been leading up to the battle of All Might versus All for One. We've been leading up to the characters moving into UA as a dorm system. We've been leading up to Bakugo versus Deku so they can finally settle some of this tension between them as friends, and whatever else you want to consider them. And then at the end of the season, we not only get, I love the episode, I think it's episode 23, of Twice's perspective, to get a little bit of insight into the villain's head and their mindset. That line in season 3 where Twice goes, "Heroes only save people who are good." That line, it gives me chills every time I rewatch that episode, because it's so, like, it just fully explains so much of the villain's mentality in this society of, we are outcast, we are unwanted, we're not able to be saved. And that is a big crux of Izuku's story, is him wanting to save people and dealing with a villainous force that doesn't believe that's possible. And I love it. And so there's that. There's the introduction of Mirio and the big 3. That's the big trolling. I feel like Horikoshi's making fun of Naruto in that moment, because you have Tamaki that's like a Sasuke ripoff. You have Nejire that's like kind of like Sakura, and then you have Mirio that's like the Naruto equivalent. And it's like, okay, Horikoshi, okay, we see you. It's great. But I love season 3. It's such a great thing. And there's more setup with season 3. And like I said, in the spoiler corner, we'll hint at that. But yeah, seasons 3 and 4, I feel like the show just has gotten better as it's gone on. And that has me really excited for season 5. So I had some questions from Wu on Patreon that I want to address and answer, because I was asking for some discussion points for this soapbox for seasons 1 through 4. The first question is, who is the weakest character in terms of story and growth? And that's so hard. And then who's the strongest in terms of character and growth? And I'll be honest, the strongest one came to me pretty easy, actually. And then the weakest one was a little bit harder, because I think you could pinpoint there's a lot of characters in My Hero Academia. A lot. And they all get a little bit of screen time. Not a lot. But so far, I would say that the strongest character in terms of growth in seasons 1 through 4 has, and this is debatable, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo. I will be honest, when this show started, I did not like Bakugo at all. I was like, oh my gosh, Bakugo, you're a jerk. You're so mean to Deku. Why are you like this? Do you like the guy? Like, and you're just doing these pent-up frustrations? Why are you jealous of him? What is the deal? And then by the end of season 3, when you finally get to see Bakugo, season 3 is when we finally get to see Bakugo, like, him starting to get depth and characterization more and more. Like, we get to meet his family, and he has such a normal family. And it's like, okay, and his family's even privy to the fact that Bakugo's kind of been spoiled because he has a really good quirk all his life. And they're like, we need to kind of have somebody knock him down a peg, so UA, do that. Which they do. But we get to see Bakugo struggle with that. Bakugo struggle with getting the licensing exam and completed. And then him versus Deku, where we finally realize that Bakugo's been blaming himself for All Might losing his powers, and blaming himself for everything that's happened. And he has all of these emotions that he just can't communicate well. And Deku's like, if I had known this, what can you do? And I feel like even in season 4, Bakugo gets a chance to grow a little bit more and more. And there's going to be more of that as the series goes on, not to spoil anything. But I feel like up until this point, Bakugo's character has grown so much, and he went from being the fact that he went from being a character that I did not like to a character that I actually root for is saying something. Right? He may not have physically grown much as a character in terms of power and abilities. I think for Deku that award goes to him. But in terms of character growth, I think Bakugo's grown the most. As far as characters being weak and not growing enough, there's a lot of characters I want to see more of in terms of growth as the series goes on. But you could argue it could be characters like Shindo, or it could be characters like Mineta, which Mineta is just, a lot of people hate Mineta. I'm very indifferent to Mineta. I think mainly because I read an interview where Horikoshi said that Mineta was the personification of his horniness. I'm like, oh God. But I feel like, yeah, like Oda in One Piece, Oda's kind of perverted, but he leans in and embraces it so much that you kind of can't be mad at him. You're like, oh wow, you've really embraced this, Oda. And I feel like Horikoshi uses Mineta as kind of that tool. He's like, this character will embody that for me, so that if I need to get that out of my system, I'll just use Mineta. And so, yeah, he's raunchy and it's weird, but I can't hate Mineta. But yeah, I would say I want characters like, I guess Momo. I would want Momo to grow more in the series, because she grows a lot in season 2. Like she kind of steps up as a leader. And I'll talk a little bit more about Momo in the spoiler corner, but from seasons 1 through 4, I feel like Momo has so much potential. She has a lot of potential as a character. And in seasons 1 through 4, we just don't see... In season 2, we see a lot of growth with her, but then after that, it just kind of goes, eh. And she just kind of pitters out. And I like Momo a lot. I think she has an amazing quirk, and she's super smart. She's leaderly. She just needs confidence. And I'm like, I need her to be in more scenes and to grow more as a character. So the weakest one was that was a hard pick. Then we have favorites. My favorite hero, favorite class 1A, favorite class 1B, and favorite villain. And some of these are going to have to be expanded on in the spoiler corner, so I apologize ahead of time. But if I had to pick a favorite hero, and I don't want to choose something cliche, like I love All Might. I love All Might's character. Endeavor has a lot of appeal in terms of his depth, especially coming into season 4, how much his character has been given more of a spotlight. But if I had to pick a favorite hero, it'd probably be Aizawa. I really like Aizawa. He's hilarious at the beginning of the series, how apathetic he seems as an instructor, as the instructor in his sleeping bag, and then his sleeping astronaut suit. But then by the end of season 1, you realize he really cares for his students. Like, out of all the heroes I was genuinely concerned for, at the end of season 1, I was really thinking that Aizawa was going to die. I was like, they're going to kill him. They're going to kill our mentor figure right off in season 1. That's what they're going to do. And I was really, when he was getting his head pounded by that Nomu, I thought, this is it. He's dead. And he made it through, and he's become one of my favorite characters, just because of how much he's that kind of character in an anime that he cares so much for his students, but you almost can't tell because he puts on such a front. But in the inside, he's a big old softie. And it's like, And I feel like in season 3, when he was fighting Dobby's double and trying to protect the students, you really got a sense for how much he really cares for those kids at 1A, at UA. So I really, really like Aizawa. And then as far as the characters in Class 1A and 1B, Class 1A, like I said, I can't believe I'm saying it, but Bakugo is one of my favorite characters now. I mean, I love Deku. I love Izuku. But Bakugo, his character development, he just makes me want to root for him and for him to get stronger and develop that friendship with Deku even more. But aside from that, I really like Kirishima. Red Riot. Our manliest of men, our manliest man, Kirishima. I love him. I think that Kirishima is not only a gentleman. I loved his arc with Fat Gum in the internships with Tamaki and Fat Gum. I love it. I loved in season 4 him, like his backstory, his relationship with Mina, like coming out with all of that. I love it. And I love how he is trying to like take someone he idolizes and pay homage to him, but making it his own, like with Red Riot, the homage to Crimson Riot. I just really like Kirishima as a character. And am I a Bakugo Kirishima shipper? I don't know, maybe. Maybe that's why I like their characters so much. Who knows? But I really like Kirishima and I really like Bakugo as characters for 1A. And in Class 1B, you're all going to not believe me. Monoma is probably my favorite 1B character. I know, right? Most people hate Monoma. He has the copycat ability. But here's the thing. Monoma's annoying character traits are what I find endearing because he's such a diva. Monoma is such a diva. The tournament arc where they were doing the knights on the horses and trying to do the battle, like they were playing chicken against each other, and Monoma was like stealing all the headbands from Bakugo and the others. I loved it. There's going to be moments with Monoma in the future that are going to be interesting. But the play in season 4 where Monoma is in charge of the play and it's like the Romeo and Juliet Star Wars Lord of the Rings spinoff. I love it. I love how much he's a diva and he thinks he's just so superior, but he's like so tsundere. And so he's like a trash king. And I do have a soft spot for trash king characters, and he's definitely that. So I like Monoma a lot from Class B. I also honorary mention to Shinso. Shinso Hitoshi. Dude, he's not officially in a class yet, but I love him. I love his backstory. The concept of a character whose quirk would instantly make you think that he's a villain, but he wants to be a hero. It's like, and his moment in the tournament arc, so good. So good. It was like a turning point for Deku's character because he could summon the vestiges in that moment. It's just wonderful. I absolutely love it. I love Shinso's character and like his attitude. He has a very similar attitude to Aizawa, which I find if I like Aizawa as my favorite hero, I can see that's why it would make me connect to Shinso's character, because he's very like laid back and calm and collected and cool, but under the surface he has a big heart and he has a lot of emotions, and I think that's why I like his character as well. So yeah, there's those characters there, and then there's my favorite villain. I'm gonna have to talk about this more in the spoiler corner, obviously, but I have two favorite villains, and it's nothing against Shigaraki, nothing against the League of Villains, or Spinner, or Compass, or any of those, or Toga, but it's Dabi in One for All. Dabi, because he's a piece of trash. I watch Triple L. I don't know if any of you guys subscribe to Triple L. He reviews My Hero Academia each week. He reviews the manga, and he talks about like shipping couples and things like that. Like, he likes My Hero Academia a lot, and I watch his videos every week because I appreciate his commentary. I don't always agree with him, but I appreciate his commentary, and he's one of those reviewers that I can respectfully disagree with, but also appreciate a lot of what he says. But I do agree with Triple L that Dabi's just garbage. He's such trash. But it's one of those villains that you love to hate. Like, Dabi's a villain that I love to hate. Like, oh man, more on that in the spoiler corner, but he's just, Dabi is just a crazy villain that I'm really excited to see more of. And then there's One for All, or All for One. Let me get that right. All for One. And talk about being an intimidating presence. Season 3, because seasons 1 and 2 kind of, they introduce All for One and they show us All for One. And at the time I was watching, I was thinking, okay, it's this old decrepit man that All Might's beat up. Like, how powerful can he be? And then you see he can steal quirks. And then you see him in season 3 where he just stabs Best Jeanist in the gut and just ransacks the whole place, and you're like, oh, okay. But not only that, All for One is not only powerful because he can steal quirks, because he can force them to activate, and because he can use them at will, but he is also a psychological manipulator. Like, he had All Might nearly crying out of just mentioning people and mentioning scenarios. Like, he didn't have to do a flashback or make All Might think of anything. He just had to mention it with a few words, and he had All Might like in a state of desperation. And villains like that can psychologically affect heroes and get under the skin of our protagonists as well as be powerful are really, really cool to me. And I like Horikoshi in doing the Star Wars motif, has All for One with like the Darth Vader helmet and very much seeming like this ominous dark presence. I really like that. But he's kind of like Darth Vader and also the Emperor at the same time. So it's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, All for One and Dabi are probably my favorite villains. I do think Shigaraki is a good villain, but if I had to pick one or two, it'd be those top ones there. So, I can't talk about favorite couples until we get to the spoiler corners. So sorry. I know I know that shipping in My Hero Academia, some people get really frustrated with like the shippers and the shipping community in the fandom. Let me say first and foremost, and I've said this in other anime reactions, I'm a multi-shipper for the most part. I am totally okay with shipping characters with multiple people. There are a few exceptions of one true pairings that I won't touch, but for the most part, I can be multi-shipper for that. The manga versus the anime adaptation. I was asked what did I think about the adaptation of this series. I like it. Case in point, I think that for the most part, the anime adapts from the manga seamlessly. There are a couple things switched around a little bit just to make it flow better, but kind of similar to, I think, unlike Haikyuu, where there are things left out of the anime that are like extras in the manga or little side plots that aren't necessarily relevant, especially in season 4. If you saw me comment on that season of Haikyuu, there were things left out. I feel like for the most part, My Hero Academia doesn't leave things out. It's including everything. Everything's in there. Season 4 cut off at a weird place, and I'll talk about that in the spoiler corner. But for the most part, everything's there. It all makes sense. I've loved the adaptation, and since I've gone back and read the manga, it's just good. It's a good adaptation overall. So yeah, the rest of this soapbox is going to be a spoiler corner. So for the most part, guys, I'm really excited to react to season 5. I wanted to do this soapbox just to kind of review seasons 1 through 4 and my thoughts on them. I'm sure this is like a 40-minute video by this point. I thought it'd be shorter, but I'm like, I'll just do a really quick soapbox, and here we are. But I'm really excited for season 5. I cannot wait to see how they adapt some of the moments in the manga. Those of you that are anime only, I'm only going to say this, and this is not a spoiler, but I'm going to say that, 1, my favorite parts of this series have not been animated yet, but they're coming. And 2, this story only gets better, and it only gets darker. So, hope y'all like the Culture Festival. Hope y'all like Gentle Criminal. Those were fun times. I did a Tumblr post about seasons 1 through 5, or seasons 1 through 4, and my predictions for season 5. You can go on my Tumblr and see that if you want to know. Otherwise, you can stick around for the spoiler corner if you don't care to be spoiled. But if you don't want to be spoiled, if you want to still be anime only, I encourage you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am going to be reacting to season 5. I'm hoping to, on Sundays, along with Bungo Stray Dogs, have the season 5 reactions out on Sunday evenings. That's my goal, is by Sunday evening to have the reactions out. So hopefully you all will see them then on Patreon and on YouTube. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But we shall see, right? We'll probably have the full-length reactions on Patreon and then have the edited ones on YouTube. So that will be exciting. But I hope you all enjoyed the reactions. I hope you guys enjoyed this soapbox. Thank you so much for watching. But if you want to stick around and talk some spoilers, yeah, let's do a spoiler corner. So when I reviewed Haikyuu Season 4, I would talk about the episodes, and I'd watch the episode, go back and read the manga, and then come back and do like a spoiler corner. And that's what I'm going to do for My Hero Academia. I'm going to watch the episode, go back and read the chapters that the episode covers, and then come back and talk to you guys in like a spoiler corner for 24 episode season. And at this point in the story, we are transitioning from the end of Act 1 into setting up the things that are important that are going to happen in Act 2. Because Triple L just talked about this. As I'm recording this video, Chapter 306 has just come out. And I think at this point in the manga, we're only at chapter like 249, maybe? 249? Yeah, I think so. Pretty sure we're on 249, one of those chapters there. So we're like 60 chapters ahead in the manga. But Triple L was talking about this in his review, and I've got a link to it down below so that you can check it out along with his channel if you want to. But in a 3-act structure, most stories have a 3-act structure. And in the manga right now, with Chapter 306, we're entering the 3rd act. So we've basically had like 100 or so chapters to do the 1st act, 100 or so chapters to do the second act. And then he predicts that probably between 400 and 500 chapters is where My Hero Academia is going to end. Like, he thinks it's going to be like 200 chapters, and I'd probably agree with him on that. So season 4 had the hard task of starting Act 2 and building up all the important plot points that are going to be happening in Act 2. And my only disappointment with season 4, the people that hate the Culture Festival, I'm sorry, but the Culture Festival is needed because it is the last happy moment in My Hero Academia. It's like Horikoshi saying, okay, we just had the Yakuza, we just dealt with child abuse and, possible harm being done to minors and a character death. So before we get into like the heavy shit, let me give you this Culture Festival. And this happiness, and this little cheesy, gentle criminal in La Brava. Let me give you this old-timey, folksy villain, because that's the last time you're going to have any happiness in this series. Seriously, this series gets so dark afterwards, and it all starts with the Nomu, the high-end Nomu, attacking Endeavor. I feel like Horikoshi said, okay, season 4, we're starting Act 2, we are going to set up the darker elements of Hero Society with Overhaul and the Yakuza. We're going to set that up. We are also going to set up the idea of saving people, because Gentle and La Brava were an excellent lesson for Deku about it's not just about defeating villains, it's about saving them. And so he could have just defeated Gentle, because clearly Deku was stronger than Gentle Criminal. Clearly he was at this point. He had to get the technique of the finger flick and everything, but in terms of power, he has one for all, and he's stronger than Gentle. But that wasn't the point. The point was that Gentle had been set up to have a certain mindset about society, and that's why he became a villain. And La Brava joined him for similar reasons. And this was a chance for Deku to be a hero, not by defeating someone, but by saving them, by rescuing them. And that's what he did for Gentle. And that's going to come back up in future seasons. And even up until where the manga is currently, that whole message of saving people is so integral to the story. And it's how, like Deku says in chapter 1, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. That whole arc with Gentle was a part of that. And so I love that segment of season 4. A lot of the fandom is like, well, that was pointless and just filler. And I'm like, oh, y'all, you need to understand it. It plays such into the context of the whole series overall. And I can't wait for them to find out. But yeah, that's the only happy part left. Everything else gets dark from here on in. But my only complaint about season 4, and why I don't think it gets quite up to the hype, because season 3 is so hype. And season 3 is like the climax and ending of that first act. And so I feel like it's my favorite season because of that. And I feel like by the time we get to season 6 of My Hero Academia, we're going to be right back to that awesome part. Because I feel like seasons 1, 2, and 3 are Act 1. Seasons 4, season 5, and season 6 are going to be Act 2. And then season 7 on is going to be the final act. Probably 7, 8, 9. So I could see there being 9 seasons of My Hero Academia altogether. And I'm pretty excited about it. But season 4, the only part I didn't quite care for is how they ended it. I thought they rushed the battle with the Nomu and Endeavor. And not that they rushed it in the moment, because the pacing of episodes 23 and 24 are pretty good throughout. They're good. And episode 24 is amazing. I've rewatched it. It's probably my most rewatched episode, because we're getting into keeping up with the Todorokis. And I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I'm going to try not to talk too much about spoilers, because I want to talk about it in the moment throughout season 5. But y'all, I was like, how are they going to do this? Because when we start out season 5, here's my predictions. Episode 1 of season 5, we have to pick up where season 24 immediately leaves off. And that is Endeavor being on the ground and Hawks is coming up to make sure he's okay. And then Dobby swoops in his diva fashion to come in and be extra and be like, oh, hey, Inji Todoroki. Hello, Endeavor. And then Mirko has to come in to stop him. And then we're going to find out that Hawks is a double agent. I can't tell you how excited I am to watch other reactors, like, figure out, the anime-only reactors that are going to figure out that Hawks is a double agent. I can't wait. Because I remember me reading that part in the manga, and at first you think the Hawks is in with the League of Villains, and you're like, wait, what? Hawks is with the League? Oh, hell no. And then by the end of the chapter, you're like, oh wait, he's working for the Hero Commission, he's undercover, he's a double agent, he's trying to convince the League of Villains to let him in. Yes. And like he becomes friends with Twice, and the whole thing with Best Jeanist, which is going to be insane. Like there's so many moments in season 5 I'm looking forward to. That part I'm looking forward to. The part where Endeavor has to go face the Todoroki family after he gets his scar from the Nomu. I can't wait. The slurping noodles with Shoto. Y'all, I can't explain my hype for season 5. I can't. And I couldn't talk about it earlier because I didn't want to spoil people. But that's what this corner is for. So I'm so excited because we're going to get all of that. And then we're going to get My Villain Academia. The whole Shigaraki backstory is happening this season. I know the previews have built up Deku getting Black Whip, and that's cool. Like the whole thing with Deku, and I talked about Monoma being my favorite Class 1B character, and that's because we're going to get to see Monoma try to copy Deku's abilities and realize he can't, and he tries to copy Eri and he realizes he can't, and we'll get a little bit more depth with Monoma. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Deku to see the vestiges, for us to get a little bit more info on All for One and the brother and all of that. I'm excited, but we're also, I believe, we're getting Shigaraki's backstory in My Villain Academia. I feel like the first half of season 5 is going to be the keeping up with the Todorokis and Deku and Black Whip. That's going to be the first half of season 5. And I feel like the second half of season 5 is going to be the Liberation Front and My Villain Academia. And I have a feeling, my prediction is that season 5 will end with Redestro giving Shigaraki his army. I think that's where it's going to end. I think season 5 is going to end with Shigaraki winning the battle and Redestro being like, here's the Liberation Front, you get them. And that's going to leave us hanging with Keeping Up with the Todorokis Part 2 in season 6, but also building up Kurogiri. And Aizawa's been my favorite hero for a while for a lot of reasons that I mentioned earlier. But I don't know if y'all read Vigilantes. If you don't read Vigilantes, you should. Because even though it's like a spin-off of My Hero Academia and it's monitored by Horikoshi, like Horikoshi's feeding the story to someone and someone else is illustrating it, it still ties in so much to My Hero Academia. And the stakes are a lot lower, so it's a little fluffier story. But the Aizawa backstory, if they don't tie that into My Hero Academia, if they don't give us Aizawa's backstory from Vigilantes, I'm going to be really mad. Because that backstory is so tragic and so heartbreaking. And the reveal of Kurogiri from that it's crazy. I don't think they'll get to it this season. So when we get to season 6, hopefully we'll have to talk about it. But it's so good. It's so good, y'all. I read Vigilantes. I think it's volume 8 of Vigilantes, and I like cried because I was like, ugh, so good. Him and like President Mike's backstory, it's all amazing. But that ties into me liking Aizawa. And then Dabi and All for One. I couldn't talk about it earlier in the review, y'all, because there's so much that happens that's going to happen in season 5 and beyond with All for One and Dabi. Especially if y'all have read the manga and seen where Dabi's like the whole keeping up with the Todorokis, that whole drama. Yeah, I like feed off of it. I love it. It's like popcorn. I can't get enough of it. And then All for One, I talked about why I liked him as a villain, but he's also so nerdy, and we don't really start to realize that until volume 5. I think when we do the flashback with the vestiges, which I think will happen in the latter half of the first episode that will come out this weekend, I think what's going to happen is that you get the reveal that All for One's kind of a nerd. He's kind of a comic. He talks about him and his brother reading comic books growing up and how they like all knew all the stories of all the superheroes and things like that. There's the Dad for One theory that's out there that All Might is Izuku's dad. For the record, I don't believe in Dad for One. I don't believe that here's my thing. I don't believe All for One is Izuku's father. I do believe they're related. And my theory is that just like we get the reveal that Nana is Shigaraki's grandmother, I believe that we're going to find out that All for One is Izuku's ancestor. Because All for One's been around for a long, long time. Like, he is basically immortal at this point. Unless his body just, unless Shigaraki kills him. Which I think Shigaraki is going to kill All for One. I think that's going to happen eventually. But I think that that Izuku is a descendant of All for One, because there's panel comparisons that show Izuku's profile and All for One's. Like, we've never seen All for One's full face, and I think that's intentional by Horikoshi that we haven't seen his full face. We've seen the brother's full face at this point in the manga. We've seen him. He looks very similar to Shigaraki. It's kind of weird, but we haven't seen All for One's face. And I think that that's intentional by Horikoshi, and by the end of the manga we will see it all. And I think that he is an ancestor to Deku. And I honestly think that Deku's father, who's been overseas, that I think we're at where the manga is currently, I think we're getting closer to seeing him in the manga. And I think he's going to be related to All for One, like a grandson or something like that. And that's when we're going to get the reveal that Deku's... Because it's so poetic. Horikoshi draws a lot from Star Wars, and Star Wars is infamous for its cinematic parallels and how the story narratively has like a parallel throughout. And I think it would be fitting that you would have Nana, One for All's descendant by blood, being the villain, the main villain, and you have All for One's descendant by blood being the main hero. It's that duality, right? That yin and yang. That I think that Horikoshi is eventually playing for. I don't want All for One to be his father, because that would suggest he got with Inko, and that's weird to me. But if he was his ancestor, if he had a kid, if All for One had a kid, years and years ago, and that was like Deku's grandfather or something, I'm totally fine with that. I think that would still fit, because Nana isn't Shigaraki's mother, she's his grandmother. So speaking of couples, I didn't want to talk about my favorite couples in the first part because it's such a spoiler, but my two favorite couples in this are not actually 1A and 1B characters. Like I said, I can multi-ship all day, and I could say a couple and you guys would be like, oh yeah, everybody ships them, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I have two couples I really actively root for in this series, and one of them is going to make y'all cringe. It's kind of like a crack pairing, and the other one, I think you guys will be like, really? But if you've read the manga, you know. And we talk about Nana. I am fully convinced, y'all, especially in the last few chapters of this manga, that Nana Shimura and Gran Torino were a thing. And y'all can judge me all you want, but if you've read the last couple of chapters of the manga, they're a thing. Not only is Nana Gran Torino's great friend, but if you've read the manga, and I'll include a couple panels here, spoilery panels from the manga, but if y'all are watching this point, you guys don't care about spoilers, or you've read the manga already and you know what's coming. Come on now. Look at that. Look at that. From chapter 281. You tell me that they're not a couple. Go ahead. Tell me. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Mount Lady. Yeah. Mount Lady and, oh my gosh. Kamui Woods. Yeah. They're not a couple either. Sure. They are. I like Kamui Woods and Mount Lady too. They'd probably be my honorable mention couple. I really like them too. They're clearly a couple as well. But yeah, Nana and Gran Torino, I think they're a couple. Is my theory that Shigaraki's grandpa is Gran Torino? Mm-hmm. I think that Kotaru, her son, is actually Gran Torino's son too. That's just my crack theory. Y'all can deny me in the comments below and prove me wrong, but I'm sticking to it until I've been proven otherwise. But yeah, so there's that. And then my crack couple is Dobby Hawks, or Hot Wings. And that's why I was so frustrated with the end of season 4, because I was so ready for the Dobby Hawks confrontation in the warehouse, where we think that Hawks is a villain, but then it turns out he's a double agent. I was so ready for it, and when it didn't happen in episode 24, I was like, man, okay, I've got to wait. And so I'm hoping the anime includes this. They have to include the scene because it's pretty integral to the whole plot of the show. But Dobby Hawks, like I talked about Shigaraki and Deku, if they're both descendants of the opposite All for One and One for All users, that's cinematic parallels, poetic cinema, narrative symbolism, whatever you call it. But Dobby and Hawks are such perfect yin and yangs as well. Dobby, if you've read the manga, y'all know it's coming. You probably all knew this from from season 3. Dobby is clearly a Todoroki. He's clearly Toya. We all knew. I can't wait for that moment to be animated. It won't be in season 5, but the Come Dance With Me in Hell Father, that part, I'm going to be freaking out and fangirling so much when it's animated because it's just such a good moment. But the fact that Dobby is the son of, like, the number one hero, and Hawks is the son of a 2-bit villain, and they both become the opposites of each other, and they both become the opposites of each other under similar circumstances of abuse and neglect. It's so good. And there's so much fan art of Dobby Hawks. Like, the fandom has just made it a thing. And even if it's not canon, I'm like, it's my crack pairing. I'm like, no, they're like soulmates, and I can't, I can't. So yeah, like I said, my favorite moments of the manga have yet to be animated. And when all the stuff with Twice and Hawks and Dobby happens, I like I said, there are so many parts of the manga that I can't wait to not only see adapted into the anime, but to see reactors that are anime only see for the first time. Like, I can't wait. It's going to be so good. But yeah, aside from that, season 5, what to expect. Like I said, Keeping Up with the Todorokis Part 1 is coming. Deku and Black Whip and the Vestiges is coming. My Villain Academia, I'm wondering how much they're going to have to censor this season. Because if y'all have read the manga, holy cow, it is so dark. Shigaraki's backstory and I have a corgi. You've probably seen him walking around in the background. That's Huck. That's my corgi. I'm petting him right now as I record this. When I read that in the manga, that Shigaraki had a little corgi, and y'all know what happens to him. When that happened in the manga, I was like devastated. I had to go find Huck and give him the biggest hug because I was like, oh no. I'm not ready for it. I know it's gonna be censored because it's just so graphic in the manga, but it's gonna be messed up, y'all. This season is gonna be dark. The previews haven't really shown you what's to come, and I love that. That's probably my favorite thing about this season, is that the previews for this have not been revealing. And I'm like, good. Leave the suspense. Because and the Liberation Army Redestro, I love him as a villain. He's not like a super powerful villain, but he's funny in a lot of ways, but he's also intimidating, and the whole Liberation Front battle with the League of Villains is going to be really fun. We get to see Getten. I'm ready for him. I'm ready for Toga's power expansion, for Twice, for Dobby versus Getten, and then for obviously Shigaraki and his backstory. It's going to be good, guys. But yeah, the rest of the spoiler stuff I have that's related to the manga is going to deal with beyond Season 5. So I'm curious to know when this season's going to let off at. And we can talk more at that. We can talk more with each of the seasons. But y'all, I think I've talked for like an hour and a half on this show. I didn't intend to talk that long. But I love it so much. So thank you for watching this extended soapbox on My Hero Academia Seasons 1 through 4 and the preview of Season 5. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I honestly can't wait. So please leave your comments down below. Please tag spoilers. I know there's going to be a lot of anime-onlys reading the comments, so if you do have any spoilers, please put them in tags so that nobody is spoiled. I know I wouldn't want to be spoiled if that were me, but guys, I'm so ready. I'm hyped. I cannot tell you how hyped I am to see this all animated. It's gonna be good. So, in the meantime, guys, like I said, it'll probably be Sunday nights when it comes out on Patreon and YouTube. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back soon with reactions to My Hero Academia. Bye.